Hey, thank you everyone for being here in the room. What a great time to actually be able to gather again. So thanks also for giving us the opportunity. And hey, everyone, I don't know where you are, who are here on Zoom, friends and family kind of scattered kind of throughout. So we're doing a hybrid presentation today, which means that those of you who are on Zoom will be able to see and hear everything that is being presented, but we're asking you to mute your mics. You can go ahead and put your, well, we won't actually see, but you could put your cameras on if you'd like. And then afterwards, after the presentation, we'll have a time for questions and discussion. And so those of you who are on Zoom during that time, you could either post questions in the chat, I'll be monitoring it, or raise your hand, raise the little hand icon in Zoom. So we would love to be able to hear from you as well, wherever you are at whatever time of day, because you said it might be night in Brazil. Okay, so thanks for being here. And I am delighted to have this opportunity to introduce Letícia Ferreira. She's a graduate fellow in the Edith O'Donnell Institute of Art History, affectionately known as EODIA, and also a PhD candidate in the School of Arts, Technology, and Emerging Communication, where I get to work with her. So I'm very proud of being able to introduce you. She holds a BA in Media Studies and Production from the Federal University of San Carlos, which is in Brazil, and an MA in Media Studies from the New School in New York. Her research and creative practice explores public interactives and other types of interactive and participatory media installations in public spaces, mostly urban spaces. Her dissertation draws on field research that she's conducted over the last 7 years. So she's been doing this research for many years at cultural sites in Europe, throughout the US and Brazil, and work that she actually began while she was working on her master's program at the New School. And then today she's going to present material from the dissertation that focuses on one of her case study field sites. And then I think she's going to bump out by the end to talk about the implications for the dissertation and some of the other case studies. So thank you, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to listen to your work.
Hello, thank you, Anne, for introducing me. Thank you, EODIA, for this opportunity, and I'd like to thank Katrina and Hannah and Heather for all your work organizing this hybrid talk. And I'd also like to thank EODIA for funding this research trip last year. As you see, it was really important. So as Anne said, my name is Letícia Ferreira, and my talk today is called Empathy Through Shared Experience, the National Center for Civil and Human Rights in Atlanta, Georgia. And as Anne mentioned, this is one of the chapters of my dissertation. Thank you. So the title of my dissertation is Mediated Experiences in Public Spaces. And in this work, I investigate interactives installed in 4 different public spaces to analyze the mediated experience they offer to participants. So here you have my 4 case studies, and the genre of public spaces that they are and the mission of these institutions are all very different. So the New York Hall of Science is a Science and Technology Center in Queens, New York, and their mission is a lot about education, informal education specifically. The National Center for Civil and Human Rights in Atlanta, Georgia, which I'll be talking about today, is a social justice center and civil rights organization. And their mission is very concerning consciousness raising and advocacy. Lincoln IC in New York City, over all the 5 boroughs, is a urban network communication system, and their mission is about kind of serving the public service and advertising. And Disneyland, maybe everybody knows this, in California, is a theme park, obviously, and their mission is a lot about entertainment and selling their products, I guess, advertising for themselves. All right, so I look at these sites to explore the mass entanglements of space, and publics that structure the mediated experience. And then I look into 2 public interactives of each site and analyze how these mediated experiences offer positions and roles for participants. And then just a couple kind of conceptual clarifications before we go into the case study, the way that I look at public interactives is through the mediated experience. What is the mediated experience? I'm going to say what is not first. It is not the lived experience. So I am not interviewing people and being like, how did you feel about this? That would be a different project, working in kind of investigating the lived experience. That's not the experience I'm looking at. I'm also not looking at the intended experience. So I'm not going to the designer and being like, what did you mean by this? What did you want people to feel? I'm also not doing that. What I'm looking at is the mediated experience that is possible and afforded by the media, right? So by the scripted, also clarify script in a second, but the scripted presented to the participant and the borders and the limits of what I'm studying is the affordances and the experience offered by the media. So scripts, I'm going to talk a lot about scripts in this talk, and I just want to clarify that term a little. The concept of script that I'm using in my work is from Jenna Murray in Inventing the Medium. And she's talking about how when you design an interactive experience, you need to script the interaction, but also the interactor. So you design and you, as she calls it, scripts for what you are planning, hoping, designing, scripting that the interactor will do. So that is kind of what I mean when I say the scripted experience. All right, so let's get into it. So in Empathy Through Shared Experience, I'm going to talk about this museum/center and center that is the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. It opened 2015 in Atlanta, Georgia. It is located in downtown Atlanta, and it is in this plaza called Pemberton Place that also houses the World of Coca-Cola, which is a Coca-Cola interactive experience, and the Georgia Aquarium. And it is also next door to the Olympic Park, which are all major tourist attractions of Atlanta. So I even wanted to put this little signage because the location of the museum there is really kind of positioned them already as a must-see in Atlanta. So we can go to this. Thank you. So these are pictures of the inside of the museum. And so part of my analytical frame is informed by the work of Eileen Hooper Greenhill in her description of the Post Museum. So she notes the similarities and the differences between what she refers the Modernist Museum, which is a traditional 19th century institution, and the Post Museum. And then she says that while the Post Museum keeps a lot of the elements of the traditional museum, it also has several differences in form, concept. I'll talk a little more about it. Conversations and scholarship about the evolving social and cultural role of museums and how to present and to be as an institution in society have been happening, as lots of people in this room probably know, for decades among museum scholars and practitioners. And in my work, I look a little at those discussions and kind of decade-long work and scholarship to better contextualize this center as better contextualize the genre of public space of this center as a place that emerges from these conversations in 2015. So when this is built, these conversations have been going on for decades, right? And this center has a lot of the characteristics of the Post Museum. So just to bring a couple of the differences between the modernist 19th century museum and the Post Museum, in terms of institutional power, the 19th century museum, I'm going to call it the Modernist Museum. The Modernist Museum is very concerned with the categorization and organization of the world and presenting its voice of installation, like the voice of the institution as as an authority and as truth. And in the Post Museum, the institution is more concerned in bringing together different voices, different perspectives. It's more interested in this fragmented knowledge than the monolithic knowledge of the Modernist Museum. In terms of cultural role, the Modernist Museum is very concerned in the collection and accumulation of objects, while the Post Museum is more concerned with the use, kind of more the cultural context of the object, and also into intangible cultural artifacts. In terms of educational approaches, the Modernist Museum is more concerned with but it uses more the display as the main communication form. While the Post Museum, the display is the start point, and the museum does a lot of things. So for example, collaborations, residencies, partnerships, workshops, and other things that go beyond the physical and conceptual borders of museum to engage different communities in different ways. And in terms of kind of social mission of the Modernist Museum, there's a lot of, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that soon, about the mission of socialization of the masses that was very present when the museums formed in the 19th century. And a lot of people being able to see each other and kind of self-regulate and learn how to behave properly into this special place of the museum. While the post-museum is positioned itself more as a space for conversation, for conversion, for dialogue, and kind of more as a catalyst than like, oh, this is how you behave. It's more like, just come in. That's what the museums say. All right, so in the next slide, I have an example. I don't really go into the architecture like super intensely, but I'd like to point out one thing that Tony Bennett, in The Birth of the Museum, he says that the mezzanine that is present in several 19th century museums works a lot as a way for people to watch each other and to regulate each other, right? And this example I really like because the center does have a mezzanine, so the structural element is present, but it doesn't really do the same function. So these two museums are museums from England, built in the 19th century. These are obviously like modern pictures, and you can see that like from the mezzanine, you have exhibitions and you can look at people also in the exhibitions, right? While in the post-museum in the center mezzanine, you kind of can't really see people. The vision is more of the plaza over there. And the space that if you like kind of move your body, you can see, it is a lobby in which you're not really supposed to be. When I visited in October, there was like this one bench that you can see like 7 people sitting here. But in other visits and other pictures, there was no bench. So it's really not a place for you to be. There's no exhibit there. It's just a passage. And this part of the mezzanine is also kind of like a passway. So there are this two kind of more concrete differences I wanted to point out. And other characteristics of the center as a post-museum, as I explained before, the post-museum, for the post-museum, the display is like the start point of the conversation, the communication with its publics. And that's also true for the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. So they have 3 permanent exhibitions, which you know more about soon. Rolls Down Like Water, the American Civil Rights Movement, Spark of Conviction, Global Human Rights Movement, and Voice to the Voiceless, which is the Morehouse College Martin Luther King Jr. collection. So those are the permanent exhibitions. And then they have a lot of initiatives. So if you please, thank you. So these are just a couple. They have the diversity, equity, and inclusion experiences in which they train law enforcement and corporations in diversity, equity, and inclusion. They have an LGBTQ institute, an international human trafficking institute. They're part of the interfaith response to white supremacy, and they have a bunch of online campaigns that you can engage like in Twitter and other social media. And they also do different campaigns throughout the year. So for example, this year, they're doing a series of screenings and then roundtable discussions about hidden histories of Atlanta. So they change a lot. And then I also would like to point out that the center is a site of conscience. And they're part of this network of institutions called International Coalition of Sites of Conscience. This initiative is part of this decade-long conversations of the roles of the museum that I've been talking about. And in 1999, 9 museums from the United States and the world started this, and today has museums, but also memorials, online spaces. And I really like their slogan, so I want to say this slogan. Their slogan is "Memory is Now." And they really are, their mission is really about connecting struggles of the past with human rights issues of the present, so it's a very specific mission, right? It's not preservation, it's like what is happening now. And this museum, this center is part of it. As I said, I point this out as a way to understand the center as this cultural institution in 2015 that has this post-museum position, right? So it's kind of an explanation or a contextualization of the genre of public space that this is. So today, I'm going to be talking about 2 specific interactives that are in the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. And one is the launch counter sit-in, located in Rolls Down Like Water, the American Civil Rights Movement. And the second is Who, Like Me, is Threatened, located at the Spark of Conviction, the Global Human Rights Movement. And I'm going to describe the staging of the scene, some of the media, and also the scripted experience. So Rose Don't Like Water is a permanent exhibit, and it is the start point of the designed exhibition of the museum. So it's the first place you're supposed to see. It is a long, multi-chapter story experience of key moments of the civil rights movement in the United States in the 1950s and 1960s. In the narrative conductor thread of this experience is the writings and speeches of Dr. Martin Luther King. And then it starts explaining, and I'm gonna kind of go through this. It's the context where lunch counter happens. And it starts explaining with this corridor, explaining a little bit like white and colored, which was the terms used at the time, and kind of like very daily life pictures of the life. And then it has this gallery in which they contextualize what was happening with the Jim Crow laws in the United States. And then, so it has a part explaining like, well, how was life of Black people under Jim Crow laws at the time, Carl? How was life in Atlanta specifically? And then it also talks about white politicians that were very pro-segregation and why it should continue. And it also offers some context of several of the social, political, and cultural movements that were happening at the time. So one thing that is also a conductor narrative thread of this exhibition is the law. So a lot of the times they'll be like, so the law passed, just desegregate this or that public space. So that's kind of the first time we're going to encounter this in this kind of threshold about the Brown versus Board of Education. And that is how we're going to enter the gallery that talks a lot about the activists that were doing a lot of action, different actions, as the gallery explains, to actually enforce the laws. So there were already a lot of laws desegregating public spaces, but in practice that didn't really happen. So there are a lot of activists doing work to make that happen. So in one side, it talks about Atlanta, the city too busy to hate. So in several points of this exhibition, it will kind of highlight Atlanta because it is in Atlanta and because Atlanta is a very important city for the civil rights movement. In the back, we have this chassis of a bus with the covered in mugshots of the freedom riders who were activists that would try to desegregate buses and bus stops in the South. And we have the lunch counter. So for those of you who may not know what a sitting protest is, before I continue, a sitting protest started in North Carolina at a Woolworth, which is a department store, by 4 college freshmen. They were Black students, and they sat down in a white-only counter, and they asked for a coffee or a lunch, and they would wait until they were served, which they were not, and they were super harassed and beaten up, and lots of bad things happened to them. But this type of protest spread throughout the American South. And a lot of people start doing this. And as a way to desegregate that public or communal, I guess, space. So now that's kind of like a summary of this type of protest. And now you can see from this picture, I'm gonna give us a zoom in a second, that it really tries to be like a lunch counter. Oh, we can go, thank you. So it has the like metal details, it has the stools, it is all like very similar to how a lunch counter looks like. And then in front of the, I forgot the name, counter, thank you. In front of the counter, there's a mirror, and then there's the image that in this picture it's in, but that picture keeps fading out and in every 10 seconds. And then you have this little support hanging things that were for headphones, but COVID, I'll explain, now they give disposable headphones. You have the clock, and you have, and you have a little knob to change the volume. So you arrive at this place and you are in a little line, and then the staff member asks you to sit in a place. Before COVID, it was very like, just sit somewhere. And now they kind of control it a little more, direct a little more, I guess. So they're like, oh, please sit in this one or that one. And then they give you the disposable phones. And then, as I said, before you had headphones that would just hang there, but because we don't share stuff anymore, they give the disposable. And then you put it in your ear, and then you sit down in the stool with your hands on the counter. And then they play they play an audio in your ears that I will play for you, but I'll describe it a little bit. And it is an audio, it's a 3D audio, so it's going to be a little weird in the speakers because it's designed for headphones. And it is as if you are right in the sitting protest and this person is harassing you, this man is harassing you. So they talk a lot and they really threaten you to kill you, etc. in your neck, and they start kicking the stool. So you see in the video that I'm going to play that there's like a thud. That's the stool doing like kind of trembling, which is the kicks. So let's see the video. It is intense, I should say.
That's not the sound.
No, I'm gonna play the sound. This is like, yeah. Can we play? Oh no, I mean, can we? Yes. We couldn't download this file.
How you doing? This your first time, right? So far, so good. It's nice and calm. You'll be all right. Just stay calm. Get up. Get up.
Get up! Get up!
If you don't get up, boy, I'm gonna kill you. Right in front of everybody. I'm gonna take this fork, I'm gonna jam it right into your neck.
Yeah. Oh, he's still ugly though. Hey, ain't he ugly?
Thinking he's something he ain't nothing.
You hear that? That's gonna be you, boy. That's gonna be you, boy. If you don't leave now! Get up! Get up!
What you've just experienced was created to honor the brave men and women who participated in the American Civil Rights sit-in movement.
All right. Sorry, it is an intense audio. So every time that you hear the get up thud, your stool is trembling. It is pretty horrifying, really. And so, but okay. Now I'm gonna like not be the emotional person after listening to this. Let's go back to the experience. So this experience is very much in the body, right? I don't know how you guys are feeling now, but when you go through this in this place, it is very like this voice is in your neck, your body's being like kind of hit, right? When not exactly hit, but like it's moving as they like kick the stool. It is very in the body, and it is an experience that doesn't really ask for an input, but to be present, right? It asks for you to be there, and that's kind of it. And as I like to say, the experience will be provided. You don't really need to bring a thing, but your presence. And it is an experience of a violent reaction to a non-violent protest, right? Because your body is still, you're sitting down, you're quiet, you're just there, just being harassed. That is this experience. So this is one of the scripts, right? For you to be in a simulated sit-in protest in which you sit, you're very still and you're harassed. But in my analysis, I explained that this piece is specifically, it actually offers two scripts, one slightly different than the other. So one of them is the one that I just described, right? The simulated protest. And the other one is a simulated civil rights training. So you're like, what? So in the gallery in which the launch counter is located, there is a lot of texts and materials about the nonviolent training that civil rights activists will go through and will teach each other and invite people who already knew, etc. So that is everywhere. And they explain why they did it, how they did it. They had like little rules that they were trained on, and they explain that those trainings are often done with role playing and with somebody that knows what they're doing, obviously, harassing you and you being like very quiet, kind of being trained for that type of protest. So this is already a clear context. But in the interactive itself, there are some design elements that suggest that this second script is present. And if you are in the experience and you open your eyes, you see this mirror in front of you that is kind of a reassuring mirror in a sense that show you that you are in a museum. In the mirror, you can see the entire exhibit behind you. So it's very much like, oh, I am in this museum. And then you look a little down, and then you see this very clear clock digits, which are just counting how much you can last. So you're like, oh, wait, this is a training. This is available, right? This position of oh, this is a training is available. And then this is reinforced by the instructions. So these are the instructions in the counter that goes from one script to the other. So when they ask, how long can you last? It's kind of in the training realm, right? And then the instructions: put on a pair of headphones and place their hands flat on the designated areas. And they have the little hand. Experience a simulated response to your non-violent violent protest. So that is the script of being in a protest. And see how long you can keep calm with your hands steady in the counter. That is the script of training. And then try to do it with your eyes closed. The mirror and the clock, if this piece had been designed just for the simulated protest, they really didn't need to be there, right? Because why would you? But they did design something for you to look at when you open your eyes. And in my analysis, I understand that as the second script in present. And because it's a very charged experience, I think this is kind of a gentle design that offers you a way out that is not actually getting up and taking your hands. Because when you take your hands off the counter, this experience stops immediately. So kind of opening your eyes gives you a way out of the very intense charged position of being in the protest to be in a training. But this, we can go to the next one. But this is just in the beginning. So this happens in the second gallery of this exhibition. And we go later. I'm not really going to go into the entire narrative of the exhibition, but just to point out a couple highlights, we go to the March in Washington gallery. And then there's a gallery in, there's civil rights activists then and now. And then there's one with the assassination of Martin Luther King. And then you go up through the stairs that simulate the stairs that he was murdered. And then you arrive at his funeral as kind of an in attendance of his funeral. And then finally, you ascend to the stairs of the martyrs. And then there's obviously not everybody, but a lot of the people who died in the civil rights movement in those pictures. This wall is covered with the laws that were passed during the movement. And then they have this great interactive, that is not in my dissertation, but it's a great interactive of the legacies of the movement. So I'm now going to pivot to my second analysis, and we can move, thank you. So when you arrive to this one, you already been to the civil rights exhibition. And we can go. This is the first thing you see after you pass through that threshold. There's the 4 mirrors here in front of you. There's 3 to the left and 3 to the right. And some of these mirrors are regular mirrors with these words etched into them. And some of them are those interactive mirrors. So these mirrors, they have deep sensing cameras into them that activate when you approach. And they also have the speakers. So when you are from a distance, you see this, it's like a blurred person and it's written, I am. And as you approach it, thank you. As you approach it, I'll show a better picture in a second. You have the picture becomes clear. And then you have a label. So this now is, I am an activist. We can go to the next one. I am, in this case, a girl. And then here, this is a kind of difficult place to document because of the mirrors. I do have a video, but it says, select a trait that describes you. And then you can choose in these little arrows a different trait. And then when you find a trait that describes you, you can watch the person's story. So this mirror screen, interactive mirror, it has the image of a person. It's never a picture. Even when it's in the like home screen blurred image, it's the person's breathing and you can see. And their height is kind of like a person's height, their position more or less. So when you look at the mirror, you kind of see the person in front of you. And in the video, you see them, but if you move, you can see yourself. So there's display of the reflection of you watching and the reflection of yourself. And of course, if you look to the side, there's a full body mirror on your side. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mention that the video that you're going to watch is of a person that was persecuted for that trait. So if you're like, oh, I'm a girl, look, I'm a girl, I will select this, and then this girl is going to tell us the story on how she was persecuted for being a girl. So that is kind of that part of the instruction. And let's watch a short video of this.
Hi, my name is Trudy, and I'm from South Africa. There was a piece I was doing.
So as you can see, there are subtitles. Oh, can we go back one, please? We can go back to the girl. Yes, thank you. There are subtitles, and there's also a little X that you can press to leave and a timer of the video. But if you leave the area that the camera senses, it stops as well. So the labels available are 13. Yes, I got it. And they are kind of limited. They are woman, black, white, blogger, Christian, activist, Muslim, girl, worker, Jewish, LGBT, disabled, and artist. So the experience asks you to select from this limited amount of traits and then to just kind of watch a video. So it asks you for this input that is based on your experience in the world, right? These traits are all, I mean, I don't know about blogger, but most of them are identity traits. And then they kind of don't do anything with it. It's like, now watch a video. But I'm going to talk more about that in a second. So we can go to the lectures. Thank you. So now that I described the two experiences, I would like to talk, kind of do a comparative analysis, which is what I do in my work. Again, looking at the mediated experience. In both of these interactives, they offer mediated experience related to shared experiences. In one, you share a provided experience. They give the experience to you, and that's an experience that you share with each other people there, but also, most importantly, with activists that went through that. And the Who Like Me is Threatened offers a selection based on experience that you share with the interviewee, but then doesn't really give you anything to do with that, right? And then the lunch counter sitting is a very sensorial experience, and it's like you feel in your body the thing, while the Who Like Me is Threatened is a very kind of rational and visual experience, like select and watch. We can go to the next one. Both of them are scripted to evoke empathy through, as I mentioned, the shared experience. And while the lunch counter sitting provides an immersive, directed experience in which there's not many options of what you can do, you can like open your eyes or leave, right? It also offers an experience in which you don't need to agree with anything. You don't need to be a civil rights supporter. You don't need to agree with that ideology. You don't need to agree with anything at all to sit down and have that experience. You just need to sit and be present. And then you feel that in your body. While the other one asks you to provide this experience that you share with the interviewee, and then that's it. So I feel like it really, what do you do with that afterwards? There's nothing designed in the mediated experience for you to do something to actually make that connection, right? They kind of hope that in your selection and watching the video, you feel the empathy, but I feel like, and I write that in my chapter, I feel like it's more of a hope than an actual designed experience. So, as a post-museum and a site of conscience, the center has a mission that's from their website of justice and equality for all. And it's not a mission of education only or to establish a narrative of truth and history, but to fight for justice for all. And for that, they need to engage visitors as participants in their multiple activities and initiatives. And these two interactives are essential in the construction of the position of the visitor as an ally. They are essential to engage them deeply. So it's not only data and information, here's why you should support, but it's also to emotionally, through this scripted experience of empathy, to engage the person as an ally, to engage them as part of the social justice community that the museum wants to form around itself, that participate in these initiatives that are allies. As maybe we saw today, not all the installations go like super well. Lunch Counter works kind of a little better as constructing the position of ally than Who Like Me is threatened. And for the Lunch Counter experience, in one of the scripts, you are witnessing in your body the thing that the activist went through. And in the second script, as a training, you are now being trained on nonviolent protest. Congratulations. So both scripts are positioning you differently, but as allies. While in Who Like Me is threatened is kind of muddled. It's not very clear what a successful encounter with that regarding the empathy script is. We can go. Oh, thank you. So this analysis, the comparative analysis that I've done today is the methodology. I use that again in each of my sites. And then, for example, I just want to point out in the New York Hall of Science, I look at it as an institution that has a mission of informal education. I look at the kind of history of science and technology centers, which have their own institutional history. But I also look at it as an institution that comes from the techno-cultural origin of the World Fair of 1964. And I look at the two installations from that site as I study how they position visitors and how that's related to the mission of the museum. For Disneyland, I take Disneyland as this very written about, crying in my literature review, for this place that established as many conventions for interactive experiences. So they're very cutting edge in terms of using interactive technology. And I also look at their inclusion as everybody as a consumer. So everybody can be a Disney if you are okay with being a consumer. And I talk about how it's these two specific interactives I look at contribute in selling itself, because Disney's biggest product is Disney, right? And also, I wouldn't say selling, but also working with several elements of American ideology throughout the experience. And then Lincoln IC, which is the chapter I'm currently working on, I look at it as this interactive opportunity for public utility in the space of the street. It is a project that took away all of the payphones of New York, all the 7,500, and substituted them for not even 2,000 totems. And they have this screens with ads on both sides. There's another screen on the other side. And this is a tablet with several public utility services. And I look at it as looking at the mediated experience that this totem offers. I look at it as an element of the urban landscape that is designed for movement. You're not really supposed to stop there. You're supposed to stop, look up, and keep moving. And I look a lot at how the city and the project have treated people that have stayed, which have happened a lot and still happens. But I also connect this with Michael Sorkin's theme parkization of the city, which then kind of connects me back to Disney. This dissertation is a gigantic cycle, I feel. They connect to each other. So yes, so this is the chapter that I'm currently writing. And then just to wrap up my talk, I would like to point out some of the things, the elements, the insights that I've had researching and writing this chapter and discussing with my committee. So first of all, it was a refinement of the framework for analysis of the interactive experience. So I started this chapter with one framework and I finished this chapter with a total different framework, because the analyzing this to very specific interactives really made me be like, oh, this makes no sense. I don't need this. I actually need something to help me talk about this other thing. So that was a very important thing. And I would take this framework and look back at things that I've already written and to the chapters I'm yet to write. Second, it really helped to refine me. I already knew that I had to look at the context, right? Because I studied space, place-based stuff. So like which place, which space. But I think that this really helped me to kind of shape how I need to look at this context. Doesn't need to be everything, but what is the thing that I need? So that was really helpful. It also helped me with my field research methodologies, especially because I had the opportunity, thank you to Odia, to visit this again as I was already writing. So that is very different if your research is very based in field research, that you already have a framework and now you visit again. So that was great. But finally, and maybe most importantly, it helped me to develop the concept of what is the experience that I'm studying. And it is the mediated experience. I was not very clear on how to talk about this before, and discussing with my chair and my committee has really helped me. And after writing the chapter has really helped me like grab it. Maybe today you guys will tell me more things about it. But I'm very happy about this, and I can take this concept because it's very central for my dissertation and keep working with it. So that's my talk. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward for questions.